Hello everyone, I'm Lalit Singh. Welcome back to Android Developers Fundamental course. Today we're going to talk about testing, and that too UI testing. We have already seen in our previous sessions how we can do JUnit testing. Now we're going to talk about UI testing, how exactly we can test our views, buttons, edit text, drop-down menus. So in this particular section, we are going to talk about different UI testing methods. What are the different Android frameworks like Espresso testing or automated UI testing, how exactly we set up the environment for UI testing, and how we can create the test cases for Espresso testing. Basically, this we will be learning how we can use the Espresso testing, that is the Android provided UI framework testing. We're going to learn how we can use that Espresso testing in this particular session. So what is UI testing? Well, when we talk about UI testing, now we are moving up from just Java code. We will be seeing that, okay, if we click a button, it transfers you to the next activity. Or if you write something on your edit text, and whatever you are writing, it's performing the same operation which you expected it to perform. So those are known as UI testing. Now you are testing the real UI components. So you need to tap your UIs and enter the data in that and make choices if it is a drop-down menu, and examine all the values and properties of each and every UI. Now you have to try with all the inputs, whether it is valid or invalid, so that you make the test cases, all the test cases for your UI testing. And at the end, you have to check out the output. If the output is actually a correct one, or the expected value is coming or not. If it is not coming, what is the margin of error, and do the testing again. It's just like any other testing, but this time you will be testing the actual UI components. Testing can be done manually also, but if you start doing it manually, it's too much time consuming, it's tedious, whatever the test case you have designed today may change over the time. When the development cycle is growing and your code change up, or your developer changes the code, at that point of time your test cases which you have designed manually will fail, and you might have to design or start from the square one. So how exactly automatic testing helps you? Well, first of all, it saves a lot of time, which you can actually use it for other resources or other works. And it's faster than your manual testing, of course. You don't have to write manually each and every test. Mostly, the methods are already provided to you. All you gotta do is just use those methods and repeat the testing whenever it's needed. Whenever you are getting the results failure, you repeat those testing methods again and again. And of course, you don't even have to write the tests for different devices and different configurations. So that also being taken care by the automatic testing. Espresso UI testing will be used for your single app testing, and to use that you have to add the dependencies here. You have to add all the library files inside your build.gradle module build.gradle file, where you will be putting all your testing libraries. UI Automator. Well, it's again provided by your Android UI framework only, that is testing UI framework. But in this, you can test the different or multiple apps. Let's say application is there, and you click on a button, it is opening up a map to show the location of a place, or it is opening up a web browser. So in this case, you can see that one application is opening up the second application. So in this particular case, you will be using UI Automator, not the Espresso testing. Espresso testing is specifically used for single app testing, and when you are doing the multiple apps, you might want to try your UI Automator testing. So what is instrumentation? Well, instrumentation is setting hooks between your application and your Android system. Well, with the help of instrumentation, you can test your app independent of your app's lifecycle. You can test all the methods. You can control how your app loads. You can test any methods, maybe on start, maybe on resume. So you get a complete freedom on your app while you are testing with the help of instrumentation testing. So what are the benefits of instrumentation testing? Well, you can monitor all the interaction which you are doing with your Android system, which your application is doing with your Android system. You can monitor all those interaction. Plus, you can invoke any method in your app for the test, and you can change the fields independent of your lifecycle. It doesn't really matter whether your lifecycle has reached to that stage for that testing part. With the help of instrumentation, it's totally independent to your lifecycles method. So how do you set up the testing environment? Well, to set up the testing environment, the very first thing you need is Android repositories. You need to download Android support repositories or library files, and that you can do by going to your SDK manager and download the latest one. And if you already have, update it. And add all these dependencies inside your build.gradle, that is module 1, and inside the dependency tag or inside the dependency area. What are those dependencies or files you want to add? Well, you want to add all the annotation libraries, test runners, or Espresso library you want to add. That is the support library for Espresso. And if you are going to use UI Automator tester, you might want to add the UI Automator tester library also. Plus, you might want to add this particular dependency inside your default config. So whenever you are performing any UI related testing, maybe Espresso or UI Automator testing, this Android JUnit runner dependency will be needed. Now, if you want to prepare your own device for testing, you might want to turn on your USB debugging mode by going into the developers option, and then turn off all the animation in your developer option by getting into the drawing section and turn off the window animation scale, transition animation scale, and even the animator duration scale. Once you do that, now your device is ready for the testing part too. So when we talk about UI testing, we have a package named Android Test, and inside that there is a folder Java, and in which we will be putting all the Java classes for UI testing. So how exactly we create the classes for that? So how exactly we write the test? Again, you will be using few annotations here. Let's just talk about those few annotations. Before you create any class, let's say my own UI testing class, and you want that testing class to perform UI testing, at the very top, you need to put this annotation, that is run with, and with which class you want to use Android JUnit 4.class. Now this is the class you use for your UI testing purposes. And if you remember, in our JUnit testing, we used JUnit 4.class. So there is a little bit difference here. You need to use Android JUnit 4.class to perform your UI testing classes. To perform your UI testing operations. And after that, you want to put another annotation which will tell which type of test you want to perform, whether it is a small test, whether it is a medium test, or whether it is a large test. Small tests generally takes less than 60 seconds to perform, and if you think that your test is not going to take more than that, and it is not even using any resources like network operations or threading operations or database operations, you might want to put all your test cases inside your small test annotation. But if you do think, okay, it's going to take more than 60 seconds, but not more than 300 seconds, you can put that in medium test, and only local network operations can be performed here. But if you think, okay, your testing can take a longer time, let's say database, you are accessing data from your database, or you are performing a long running operation over the network or internet, at that point of time, you might want to put your UI testing classes inside @large test annotation. To test any activity, you want to put rules. You want to define rules before you start testing your activity. Now, there are different ways to define rule. Like if you are testing an activity, you will be defining an activity rule. If you are testing a service, you will be defining the service rule, or that is called service test rule. So here you can see that I'm defining an activity rule, that is called activity test rule is the class which you will be using. And that too, inside that you will be creating an object of that, and you will be providing the specific name of the activity which you want to test. And before you provide this statement, before you provide this object, you want to add a annotation at the rule. Once you put that, this particular statement becomes the rule now. In the same way, if you want to test more activities, you will keep on adding the rules here, and if there are the services you want to test, you can add the same rule in the way of services also. Now, before you want to test your activity or service or any component, before you want to test that out, there are annotation like @before. It will be running just before your testing starts. So if you want to initialize any objects, or if you want to initialize any variables before you really start your testing, you want to put them inside this @before annotation method. So if you can use any method name, my init initializer or my init, and you just have to put before that method, and it will be executed before your testing starts. Now let's say your testing is done. Now let's say you have tested out your test cases. After that, what you want to do, you need to put that again in after notation and give any name. Let's say tear down. It's just like you did this in your JUnit testing. In the same way, what you want to do before your testing and what you want to do after your testing, you have to specify inside these methods by providing the annotations before. So if you want to make any method behave as testing method, so that's how you do it. You provide @test annotation and give any name, maybe change text for changing the test, and inside that you provide the functionality. Now, when we are doing UI testing or Espresso UI testing, there are 3 steps you need to take care before you perform the testing. That is, first step is find a view. So let's say you want to check out, or you want to test a particular view, let's say button. You have to find that button first. How can I find that button? Well, there are methods to find that button. Like you can find the button by the ID itself, or you can find the button by the text written on that button, right? Second is called perform an action. What exactly that view is performing. Like a button, of course, it will be performing a click. If you are using a checkbox, it will be performing item click. Or if you are using edit text, it might perform, it might perform your typing action, right? And then you want to verify your actions. Let's say after you click, you want to check whether it is transferring you to the next activity, that particular activity or not. Or if you are putting a text inside edit text or text field, whether the text you have entered is actually the same text which you really wanted, or in this way you can verify, you can check your result in your third case. So these 3 cases you have to take care whenever you are designing a test case. We're gonna check out all these 3 cases in more detail in a bit. Now let's just talk about Hamcrest. Well, Hamcrest is nothing but a way of creating a custom matches for your test cases. Matches are the methods which will help you find out your views, or which will help you find out the assertion, the statement we are making, that whether this is correct statement, whether my UI is giving me the correct result or not, whether the button is transferring me to the correct activity or not. So all those matches will be created with the help of Hamcrest framework. It's a framework which have been given to you by your Android itself. So there will be basically 3 kinds of matches. First will be view matcher, in which you will be identifying the view either by ID, either by content, or by focus or hierarchy. So you have to identify which view you are talking about first. So you need to get that view. Second, action. What kind of action it is performing on a view? Maybe click, maybe item click. So that action will be taken care by your view action matcher. And last is your view assertion. Assertion matcher takes care of asserting a state, checking the state, and verifying the result, whether the state which you are looking for is exactly the state which expected. I mean, whether your view is doing the same thing which you expected from it to do. So if you want to check a particular text or check a particular condition, you can use the statement like, first you need to check out which view you are talking about. Let's say on view with id r.id text to be changed. That's the ID of my text view. And then there will be dot check. Now dot check is the method which will be checking, and inside that which is a view matcher assertion, and in which I'm checking matches. What exactly I'm checking? Matches the text. Whatever the text I'm passing here, that text will be checked with my UI inside my activity. If they both match, then only the test will pass. Otherwise, the test will fail. So you can find the views with the help of ID, or you can find the views with the help of text also, or you can find the views all of. Now, all of will be used when you have more than one conditions or multiple conditions to find your view. Like it should be having a ID r.id.word, plus it should be having a text that is clicked word 15, and it should be displayed. So you can see there are three conditions. Until all these three conditions are not met, your view will not be identified. So every time you apply on view on a particular view to find out which view you are talking about, it always returns you an object known as view interaction class object. So you can use this object later on for checking or performing methods. So what are perform actions? So once a view is found with the view matcher, now you can perform methods in it. It may be a click perform action, or it may be type text perform action. So now, how do you check the result? Okay, once you have found the view which you are talking about, now if you want to check the results, so for that you can use a method named check, and inside that, what you want to do? I want to match, and match what? With text. So I will use with text method. So in this way, there will be other methods also which you can make use of, and accordingly you will be designing your UI testing cases. So what if your test fails? So what happens then? So at any point of time, let's say you are testing a text view, and you found out that your test is not really matching with the expected result you want it to be. So in your logcat, you will be seeing the message itself that your match statement doesn't really matches with the actual output. This is the very new feature introduced in your Android 2.2. Now you can record your test cases also. You can record whatever you are doing. You can run your application in a recording state of your Espresso testing, and whatever you are performing, whatever you want to perform as tests, you perform, and it will get recorded, and all the coding part will be created for you. You don't even have to write the code, and coding part will be created on its own. So how exactly your recording and Espresso test works? First thing first, you need to have Android Studio 2.2. Next, you will use your app normally. You will start clicking through your UIs and perform whatever the UI operation you want to perform, like clicking on a button should transfer you to next page, or writing on edit text. So whenever you are doing this, automatically a code will be generated for you in the background, and all the checks will be done for you in the background. And you can record this in multiple sessions or in one session itself. So all the code will be generated for you in the background, and at the end it will ask you, do you want to save this in particular file or not? And that's all. And you don't even have to write a single code there. How do you start recording of an Espresso test? Well, you click on run. Then inside that you will find an option record Espresso test. And once you click on that, your application will start running in your Espresso UI testing mode. Now you interact with your app. You click on your UI, you assert these statements, or you assert the values like in your edit text. If it is a list, you click on items. Whatever UI operation you want to perform, you perform that. And after that, once you are done with it, save all the assertion and click on complete recording. Once you are done with complete recording, whatever the UI operation you perform, all those code, everything, all that code has been automatically saved in the background for you in a file of UI testing. So you don't even have to write a single thing in this. Each and every UI, each and every method which you just saw on view or perform click has been generated for you there in the UI testing class. But at any point of time, if you want to edit them manually, you can go ahead and edit them manually also. That's the whole point of teaching you how to add manually UI testing in the first place itself. To learn more about UI testing, you can follow the following links. So to learn more about UI testing and Espresso testing, you can follow the following links and get more information about it. Next, we are going to see the practical of Espresso UI testing. Thank you.